The mission of this journey is to help people that are considering a move to the real estate industry, have been doing this for a short period of time, or who simply want to know more about real estate and the behind the scenes ins and outs of the highs and sometimes lows of this industry. Welcome to Real Estate Simplified. So, I made the bright idea to make the decision to start a podcast, and this is episode 1. It might be the last one.
No pressure.
No pressure. Here we go. So I have Bart Gurley here with me, and we were thinking about topics. We were thinking about episodes. We were thinking about the mission of this podcast, the mission of the YouTube channel that I'm also going to be putting out there, and the content. And if some of y'all do know me from Instagram or just life in general, you know that I was at Bell Helicopter for a little over 6 years, and I made a bold decision to leave all of that.
Yes, you did.
And it seemed like a really bright future there, and I could do that for 30 plus years and be super happy. Right. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start a real estate career. That's what I want to do.
I'm happy. I'm happy
We're happy. It's good stuff. So one of the first episodes that I want to put together is starting your real estate career. And one of the missions that I have for this podcast is, if you are thinking about getting into real estate, you're considering that, whether it's part-time, whether it's full-time, whether you just want to know a little bit more about the industry, the ins and outs, the highs and lows, hey, it's not just I write a contract and we get to closing and you give a realtor
check.
Right. Yeah, that's boy, that would be amazing.
Commission. Here we go.
That would be amazing. I would sign up for that.
Again,
100%, yeah, through and through. So started that in November of 2020. We're here in mid-September 2021. So I've been doing this for 10 months.
Creeping up on a year.
Creeping up on a year, right? My cap's about to go away and I'm going to have to start all over.
Yes. Well, no, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you kept. It's amazing.
Thank you.
That's a heck of a first year accomplishment.
Yes, it's been fun. So the first episode, how to start a career in real estate. And I thought, who better than to be the first guest on that, since you're the guy that I text at all hours of the day.
Yes.
You're the guy that I talk about, you won't believe what just happened.
Right.
Or even just tips and tricks. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. I do have just really quick the reasons to pursue a career, kind of my why.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you about your why here in a little bit for all the questions that I ask every single guest. But my why is my family. That's my big why. And I know it should probably be a little bit longer sentence or mission statement, but it's family. It's quality time. It's being able to be the owner of my time, and whatever that means, whether it's serving, whether it's family, whether it's playing a little too much golf, and I wasn't able to do all of that in more of a corporate America jungle.
Absolutely.
So that's why I wanted to move away from that, and I'll talk really quick about the brokerage that I chose, and not necessarily names, but why I chose it.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I knew somebody, right? It was a family friend. It was a connection of somebody that I know and trust. And it was an hour-long coffee conversation, and I was already so hungry for it that I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Right? Let's get the license in 3 months, and let's start rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I came from in my decision to pursue real estate. But for other people, they don't know what that is for them.
Right.
They're I want the paycheck, or I want freedom. I want to work 10 hours a week.
All the fun parts.
Yeah, all the fun parts. So I wanted to talk to you because I know you're not at the same broker that you started out with 20 plus years ago. However many, you don't have to say the exact number of years.
Plenty
of years. Yes, that's right. It's like, how old are you this year? A year older.
I'm just barely older than you.
That's it. So kind of talk me through that initial brokerage that you chose. Why did you choose your first brokerage? Or, kind of like we talked about, was it chosen for you?
Yeah, I think there's always everybody's got a different story. I mean, you could ask 10 agents and maybe get I think you'd probably get 4 or 5.
Yep.
But there's some unique individuals out there that have different talents, and maybe they gravitate, and maybe they're just well organized in their thoughts and their goals. I think more than most, and they may have different motivations. But generally, mine was very similar to yours. Actually, it was who I knew. It was somebody that I respected, knew they were already in the industry, and in my mind, I made the connection of if they're successful, they're in the industry, and they've been in it for much longer than I had been, that they probably answered the same questions I would ask.
Sure.
In hindsight, that's probably not super valid.
Yeah.
So, given the industry,
when you're looking back, sure.
Well, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, and I think the industry itself doesn't do a great job of preparing people on the questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right? And so in hindsight, that's my big takeaway is I went because of a person same as you. I was there for 8 years, it worked out. Whether that was just like bullheading through it or just it was great. I mean, I don't remember it being bad.
Right. Well, and you got into the industry because your family was already in the industry. I mean, this was kind of the, hey, my dad is this, so I'm going to be that, or I'm going to kind of take over the family business.
Yeah, there was opportunity there for me. I didn't think I had clarity in other things that were a passion, and I had kind of grown up hearing and watching from the sidelines on stories, and so it was definitely interesting. The money side of it, just like many others. I mean, the time for money looked pretty attractive.
Yeah. It can.
Yeah. I mean, I did have a college degree, so I mean, I had some education, but I really didn't have a path that was real clear. So, but yeah, it was something that I had already been around and I wanted to pursue and see where it led.
Yeah.
Right.
So what were some of those questions, if you look back and you think, oh my gosh, I probably should have asked this?
Yeah. I think most people are where they are because of people, regardless of the story we just told for both of our paths.
Well, and we've probably both heard it's not who you are, it's who you know.
That's right.
Right.
It's not who, exactly. And I think knowing the commitment level, maybe the systems that are in place that are either set by the brokerage or team or group or whoever you're really affiliating with, do they have the systems in place to have the phone answered when you need help? Or is there a system in place to train you to a certain level? And I think by and large in the industry, this is a large hole that's not really fulfilled legitimately.
Well, and especially if you want to treat it like a business.
That's right.
If you want to run your own business, you're talking about systems and processes, you're talking about training.
Yeah.
These are some things that you might not ask those questions about when you're starting out.
You don't even know that.
I got a family friend that works at X, so
that's right.
I can trust them.
Yeah, the whole independent contractor thing, like it's pretty simple. It's not rocket science, like that old saying. It isn't, but it's still a business.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's still a business, and the cost of entry in every other business is probably higher than it is in real estate for the amount of money you can make.
Right.
You really only need couple of $1,000s max, and that's giving you a little bit of leeway there.
You don't need the four-year degree.
You don't need that. You don't need really much. The classes and taking tests and joining a board, I mean, that doesn't add up to a whole lot of money, and then you're relying on that brokerage to really fulfill a lot of tasks for you to help you be successful. Yeah. I think what happens in practice is the 80-20 rule of people that make it, those first 3 years, it's really because they're just purely tenacious. I don't think that the actual industry has created very many places the way to train people other than they're just a bulldog and they make it because they want it so bad. They make it, and everybody else, I think a lot of people that could be extremely successful are really just pushed to the side and go find something else.
And the whole mindset or the idea of a bulldog, that's not necessarily the concept of running people over.
No, not at all.
You're just getting after it.
Like,
you're gonna figure it out.
You got to figure it out. There's no burn the boats. There's no alternative. I've got to make it. I have no other option. Everything else is going to take longer to get there, and I'm not willing to go do something below my, my talent
what you think your pay grade is.
That's
or your
right. Whatever.
Level. Yeah.
I don't even want to fill in the blank there, but you get, so you're just tenacious and not saying no, and those people make it. I think they'd make it anywhere.
For sure. And I think that's a great segue to this next question, because that was probably you those first 3 years or 5 years, right? It's just, I'm grinding, I'm a bulldog, I'm tenacious, I'm figuring it out. And even when you started, we didn't have we were just talking about technology, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I need to transfer this to this other account. And it's like, how were we able to do that?
No.
Even 10 years ago.
Training was MapsCo and a printer that you turn the picture upside down on an existing template flyer and you make copies in black and white. Like, that's marketing back then.
I don't know if I could have made it.
I don't know how I did.
You're doing.
And this was
good
at
being able to,
a national. This was at a big brand.
Yeah. So with that, thinking about those first few years, what were some of the reasons you decided to move on from that brokerage? And then kind of question 1A, what led you to where you're at today? Because you talked about systems and processes, you talked about training. What are some of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, if I had this 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Especially for a new agent.
Yeah, I think it took me almost 8 years to leave.
Yeah.
Right? So I wasn't unhappy.
Right.
I wasn't aware of it.
And I left a really nice job in less time than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about my own personality flaws, which
Not giving up on this.
We don't really need to bring it up again, but I am somebody that is a late adopter. I need to make sure it's a proven thing, right? I'm not an impulse buyer of any kind, really.
Sure.
So in my career, I had stable income. I had the tools and everything in place that I needed, I felt. But what happened was my desire to grow and progress was really not being met by the tools and the people I had surrounded myself with.
Right.
And it probably took me 2 years. At 6 years, I was ready.
Yeah.
Or I was there mentally. I didn't have the courage. And so for the next 2 years, I was doing all the due diligence and the question asking of clients. Would you still use me if I did this?
Okay.
I'm thinking about it. And I'm sneaking up on having the courage to pull the trigger.
Right.
And I so envy people that don't have that. Right? I'm just like, you just did it?
Yeah. Yes and no, though, right? Because I think, and this is something I probably should have brought up earlier, and one of the reasons I wanted this to be one of the first episodes, if not the first one, which it is now, is I started, and I didn't necessarily ask some of those questions, but I'm still, and I love where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I'm still, at times, I feel like kind of grinding in moments, and you're going to do that regardless of what brokerage you choose or team that you want to partner with. But I do know there were 2 other agents that started around the same time as me. One of them, who you know, is already on their 3rd brokerage.
Yeah.
And the other one is on their 2nd.
That's
and
right.
they haven't even been in the industry for 12 months.
Yep.
So that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation where it's like, how do you make sure, and nobody's going to get it right every single time. Yeah. But how do you make sure that you're not just jumping every 9 months, every 12 months, you did it 8 years, right? Like, okay, you had a good, healthy amount of time to say, yeah, it's time.
Is it fair to say, and this is a question not necessarily to you, but to the audience, which is it fair to say that looking in the mirror is not the first place people look? Right? I mean, so it's easy to blame the broker for your...
Oh, yeah.
Right, or whoever you're with, not even the broker, but in real estate, what we're talking about, it'd be the broker, the coach, or whatever. Like picking who you picked.
Or the niche.
Yeah, whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
You might, I want to do residential, and then all of a sudden you hear about the opportunities in commercial, and you're like, oh, I want to do commercial.
Yeah,
okay,
shiny object, I'm just going to chase it. Yeah, so I think just being patient, mastering a skill, and going through the grind of mastering that, which means you don't have to come back to it in the future to fix it. You have knowledge in there. Then you can add new things. These can happen simultaneously, of course, but not so segmented. But I think looking in the mirror and knowing and identifying through practice and training and coaching what your skills are and where you're maybe lacking, and being honest enough to say, I need to develop this skill. Right. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just absolutely what it is. Like if you want to develop and get good at anything, weightlifting or soccer or whatever it is, like get coached. Right. Yeah. That's it. Training for sure. Be honest. Be Clay.
Well, yeah.
Right. I mean,
100%. And I think maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like, and I feel like I hear when people are wanting to get into real estate, to them it's for the right reasons, but it's still a learning process. Yep. I mean, it's still very much You got to learn how to write contracts. You got to learn how to negotiate. You got to learn how to attract clients. You got to learn how to close a deal. You got to learn how to maybe talk a client off a ledge.
So many things.
Like, oh my gosh, you're going to lose earnest money,
so
right?
Many things.
I don't know if we should back out right now, and here's why.
Yeah. You mean they don't teach all this in classes? Like getting your license?
Right. I'll look at the camera now. And like, I mean, no, right? It's not. And I don't want to poo-poo on the process of getting your real estate license, but it's not. You brought up rocket science.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that can obtain their license, but what you do with it after that it's a lot of training, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of systems and processes.
And what are I always like this, training doesn't work, but work trains. So,
absolutely.
Aligning with somebody that can walk you through a process together and correct and steer, like you're compressing time and how to get to that next step.
Absolutely.
And if you're not willing to do that because of your own, whatever, pride or whatever it is.
Fill in the blank again.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too, but having somebody that's going to hold you accountable, you're comfortable in the relationship. That's why everybody's at where they're at, because of a relationship. Guaranteed, every time. Is you have to have a level of comfort. And if you're not being held accountable at the level you want the results to be, that's when you have to reassess.
Yeah.
That holds true no matter what the topic is, period.
Yeah.
So.
And some brokerages are a lot better at that.
Yeah.
Some brokerages, they're a lot more hands-off. They might be cloud-based.
Yeah, right.
Dare I say.
Yes.
But knowing that and knowing that accountability is a huge part of anybody's success, whether it's real estate, whether it's training to, a triathlon or lifting weights like you mentioned, you need somebody that you can call. You need somebody that can hold you accountable, or at the very least check in.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of the success that I've had early in my career too.
And you have a goal too, right? I mean, like let's not. You said new agent. They don't know maybe the questions to ask, but more importantly, what are they trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
What are they trying to do this career for? You shared your why. Like if you don't have a why, that's probably where you want to start.
Yeah.
Because that'll help you make choices of where you're going to go, who you're going to surround yourself with, to attain those steps to get to that why.
Yeah.
So that holds true year over year, no matter how long you're in the business.
Right.
Because those things change.
Oh, absolutely. Or they might need to. Oh, I already achieved that goal. Right.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Well, and so the very essence of what we're talking about here is why I was there for 8 years, right? I mean, I was comfortable.
Sure.
The income was okay. It was fine. I had the freedom of time and money and family and young kids and all those things. So I didn't have a whole need to go to that next step because all my needs were met.
Yeah.
And so eventually that did change.
Yeah. So. We didn't. I asked you the question, and then I saw a squirrel, and I wanted to go after it.
I was
about the
right there
other
next
agents.
to you. Let's go get it.
That I know. So it took the 8 years, right? And I guess for time's sake, we can speed up to that ultimate. Okay, I'm now at this brokerage.
Yeah.
What are kind of those maybe 3 or 4 things, or the 3 or 4 questions that you had to ask yourself to say, yes, it checks that box?
Yeah. So net profit.
Okay.
Right. I want to make sure that my net profit for the same process is maximized.
Sure.
Time for money. Let's make sure, at least at the very basic, numbers make sense.
Yeah.
Next thing is, who do I have access to? And I think before you ever sign an independent contractor agreement with any brokerage, you should make those connections. And not just one, probably
prior to
3 or 4.
Right.
I mean, I'd make it a game. Like, how many can I make over the next couple of weeks?
Who is accessible to me before I sign?
And really go like shaking up the room. Like, go rattle trees on purpose just to have fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To see who's going to talk a good game and doesn't actually fulfill that.
Well, and I think that's a great point, because if for whatever reason I give you a call and you're unavailable because you're meeting with a client, you're at a listing appointment, I can call somebody else.
Yes.
And it's not really a quote unquote benefit to them to pick up that call, but they're invested in me. They're invested in my success. So find those people, regardless of where the brokerage is or what letters are on the door.
Yes.
If you have people that truly want to invest in you, that's a great box to check.
That is 100%. And so I would never presume to tell somebody where to go, because I do think they exist across brands. I think good people are across all brands.
Absolutely.
I do think that each one of them have different talents or can meet different goals at certain steps in your career.
Right.
And that's where you have to be better than I was probably initially at making those decisions that are going to get you to go. So you have to know the why, because that's what creates the motivation to make the decision quicker. And I didn't know my why for a long time.
Right.
So start there.
Yeah. Figure that out.
But yeah, so that was the question. So I went over a couple there. Probably the last one is, am I capable of this? You have to internalize this at some point and say, here's what I do here, and I'm asking for this progress. Like, this is a goal I want.
Yeah.
And you really have to dissect what that means, how it's going to impact, one, your core business. When you ask for this next progression to the next level, let's say, of business and real estate, one, do I have the training and tools to manage those things?
Right.
Do I have the right systems or
within your brokerage?
Yeah,
like
within
whether
the
the brokerage.
brokerage, yeah.
Okay, so if they provide it.
Yeah. So, and then somebody already doing this at a higher level than me, or even I don't even have it doesn't even exist for me yet. But this is what I want. It's kind of like a new agent. You go in not knowing, you're asking for something you don't even know what it means.
For sure.
Same thing. It never changes.
Well, it's even like setting up templates in
right
in zip forms.
Yes.
Aaron, on my first deal, literally, and I had no clue, right? But he's like, okay, type in form A123. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, just do it.
Yes.
It's like, okay, but now I have this template, right? And so when
Yes.
I'm creating a new transaction, I'm like, thank goodness for this person that wanted to invest in me. Because if I was by myself, how am I gonna YouTube? Sure, I mean that's where everybody goes to learn stuff now. But it's like, or I could just pick up the phone and somebody spend, that person in this team, in this network, in this brokerage can talk me through it.
That's right. Yeah, and creating, that's kind of the point I was making is, when you make that next progression, you don't know that you need these other three things to be successful, which is, have to have a relationship with somebody else that's willing to take the call when I'm not there.
Right.
And they have to buy in to why. Really buy in.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we're trying to build is that culture of investing in others and hinging on that thing that core value about it being relationships, whether it's selling a house or buying a house with a client, co-agents, all these things. It's all relationship based. And if you focus there, the retention, the fulfillment you get out of what you do is what it becomes about, and the result is the income you probably far exceed what you want.
Yeah. What were those 3 or 4 tangibles or those boxes that you wanted checked, needed checked to get to commit to maybe not that second brokerage or third brokerage, but where it's like, no, this is home. Like, this is where I'm going to be. This is where I get to run my business. Bart Gurley, Real Estate or Maverick Real Estate Network.
Right. You really have to visualize yourself in that position, right? And it was questions I asked. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, some of those things that you need those boxes checked of, okay, now this is the place, right? Like where I'm at currently or where I was at for 8 years.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't have training. I really need some training.
Yeah, and mine was, I didn't need training. I actually was ready to go out on my own. Really is what I wanted to do. Is I was creating my own brokerage. I was doing due diligence to make sure I had all my ducks in a row from a business owner standpoint, from E&O and location and all the back end stuff, from copying, printing, and all that stuff, and what was going to replace where I was at and improve where I was at. And I had pretty strong ideas of what that would be.
And when you say where you're at in your business?
No, where I was hanging my license.
Okay.
So I was going to address some things that I saw flaws that I wanted to improve on.
Sure.
And then, like I say, started my own brokerage after about 2 years of question asking with clientele and doing due diligence and making sure I had those resources outside of the brokerage I was with that could support me even on my own. Yeah. Right. And not just the state licensing entity. Right. So that was, I did it. It was great. 14 years later, I went through it again. It took me another 14 years as an independent broker to want the next thing in my career, right?
Well, and that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of when you really had this mindset shift of, what's my why?
Yes.
Right, like this is my why. Okay, now my why cannot be as easily achieved if I don't make the move to
Yeah.
now where you're currently at.
Yeah, and it's those things they teach you at every brokerage about hitting certain production goals and then creating leverage. Mm-hmm. And I resisted that. Very much controlling on the process, relationship based, like we've talked about.
Right.
And I just was not willing to delegate or let go of the processes that I had kind of perfected. Mm-hmm. And I just had to wait long enough for myself to look in the mirror and realize how much opportunity I was losing by holding on to this mindset.
Yeah.
And so once that happened and I really just admitted to myself that I really couldn't do everything I needed on my own, all these dreams I had really couldn't be done by myself. And that just speaks to the pride issue I was dealing with. So
for sure.
It was and when it changed, it was like, it was 180 degrees the other way. Like,
in a good way.
Like voracious, like intake of everything I was always wanting to do, and just finding the person that did it the best and reaching out and creating a relationship to invest in me. Yeah. And it didn't matter where they were.
Well, and I don't know if we got this on tape, but you had talked about that, where it's calling people.
Yes.
Vetting it before you make the plunge to the new brokerage.
Yeah.
And not just vetting it through the one person that you know,
right.
the one family friend that you know. It's like, oh, well, I know Joe Bob, so I'm going to go.
He's amazing. He's got a great team.
He's got an awesome house.
#1 agent in the area.
Yeah, and he looks super successful, so I'm going to go be him.
Yeah.
And then I call Bob, and he doesn't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So, being able to have not just one person, 2, 3, 4.
Or Bob does it totally.
Or Bob really doesn't.
Behind the scenes, Bob's not who you think he is.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against Bob.
Right.
But maybe it just doesn't align with what you're trying to create.
Yeah. So being able to have multiple people that you can call, you can reach out to.
That's going to happen, by the way.
Absolutely.
Audience, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Bob is not who you think he is.
I'm not saying Bart doesn't answer the phone sometimes.
I have created a system.
Yes, and we have a whole network of other agents.
Other qualified professionals.
Gladly pick up the phone.
Probably do it better than me.
In the very rare times that you don't answer.
So to your point, though, you are who you surround yourself with, right?
For sure.
And
Absolutely.
so that became my mindset of I'm going to surround myself with people that, one, complement what I'm trying to achieve and probably do it better than me.
Yeah.
Now I'm being held accountable to a higher level.
And that's such a great point, and it just made me think of, are you joining a certain team because of their expertise, right? If I want to get into luxury, do I really solely want to choose this team because I see all their signs in Highland Park?
Right.
If that's your ultimate decision factor, you might end up not being in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard topic to tackle, and I could probably get some comments on this, but I'd say, why don't you get to a place where you realize that there's no difference in the process. All you're doing is adding zeros.
Right.
Like, it's literally the same process.
Yeah.
The tools you need to support, higher end properties, the knowledge, it's just knowledge. Mm-hmm. And so get to a place where you understand that, and then go align with people that can help you recreate it on your own. And maybe even go get market share, in the same market as that person, or that brand you mentioned.
Yeah.
So, but alluded to. So,
yes. Yeah.
Like, that's a whole different shift of, like, how do I do that?
Right.
And align people for me instead of relying on somebody else to do it for you.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
And it's empowering and liberating. Once you get there, you're like, holy cow, like, I can conquer the world. Let's go.
100%.
And then you surround, that's who you bring around you when you change that way, that attitude.
Awesome stuff. So we've kind of got those 3, 4, 5
more or less
questions that we need answered when you're thinking about a brokerage or even moving a brokerage, right? Because just because you select one place doesn't mean you can't move if you're getting comfortable and you need
ain't that
those
the
other
truth?
needs.
I made a commitment for 1 year. I said, if it doesn't start making progress, tangible progress in 1 year, I can always go back.
Right.
I mean, so.
But you at least had that list of these are those things.
Oh yeah.
I know I need to have taken care of.
There's somebody that we all know that you write a goal down, and you put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. I need to be better about that. That's for sure. All right. So those were more of the questions around starting a real estate career.
Yes.
Right. Choosing brokerage. What are those tangibles? All that good stuff. I'm now going to ask you the questions that I'm going to ask every single guest. I'm not going to say, questions that I do ask every single guest because it's episode number 1. But we're gonna get into it. So the first one is what is your why?
My why is pretty simple: winning hearts and minds for Jesus Christ.
There we go.
So
that's it's simple but pretty profound.
Yes,
Love it.
It's a big one. It's a great commission.
Absolutely. All right. Second, what is your biggest shortcoming you've had in your career, and what did you learn from it?
Accepting help.
Yes.
Like just
you mentioned it earlier, delegation.
It's a big short delegation. You're really not hurting anybody, but yourself. And self-development, all those things can't occur unless you acknowledge that. It's good to accept help. And for men, and I can only speak from my perspective.
Right, like we're not going to ask for directions.
Gosh, no. And success only makes you more stubborn, right? I mean, the more successful, the worse it is.
I've been able to do this by myself. I don't need anybody.
No.
Yeah, but you need more sleep.
Gosh, why do you think it took so long for me to leave? Like, I had a severe case of that.
Ego.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible.
In the way. Yeah.
Get out of here. It serves no purpose.
All right, delegation. Love
anyway,
it. So what is one piece of advice you would give a realtor that is just starting out?
Wow, that's a tough one.
Especially, one piece of advice.
Just stay true to who you are. It's kind of like high school. I have a daughter that's in high school, and I think what I give her is try and have the conviction and confidence to be honest with yourself and who you are, and you're gonna all your problems will not ever exist.
Yeah.
Right. So stay who you are, be true to that identity, and you'll attract the clientele that will support you for a long time.
Love it. The last one is if you weren't in real estate. Excuse me, second to last one. All right, we'll go back to the fourth question. Which book, article, podcast, just tidbit that you've maybe read or heard, even a movie, a show that you've recently invested in that gave you great insight?
The E-Myth book is where I kind of live right now. Yeah,
who's the author of that?
The E-Myth Revisited it's a kind of a second version of that. I can't remember his name, so we're just.
We'll get you the name.
Give me the name. I listen to it, audiobooks. I read it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really where I live right now because it's about a lot of the self-development that we're referring to for myself. How to manage people instead of being a technician and seeing things, creating systems. And having something that works for you and creating a business as opposed to being an employee. And so that's kind of where I live.
Love it. And all right, back to this is a more lighthearted question. If you weren't in real estate, because this is what you've been doing since day one.
Yes.
If you weren't in real estate though, what would you be doing instead?
Racing some sort of motorized vehicle.
Okay, so y'all don't know, Bart loves ATVs,
yes.
Dirt track type of stuff. He'll if I can't get a hold of him.
That's usually
on the weekend. It's usually he's doing the dirt tracks. Yeah.
Jumping something,
breaking something.
Yes.
But it's fun stuff. And then this really isn't a tough one to answer. But how do our followers get in touch with you?
So Maverick Realty Network is our national network of agents. So maverickrealtyNetwork.com/Bart Gurley.
All right, there we go. And I also want to give y'all a little bit of education or knowledge of the information that was provided here today by Bart. So if you click the button below, you'll be able to get a list of all the important items to consider, whether you're just starting your real estate career out, whether you've already been with a brokerage and you're potentially ready to cut ties, or even if you're watching this or listening to this and you've been somewhere for 8 years and you're comfortable. I want to provide you a list of all the information that Bart provided. So if you click the button below, I will provide that to you. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. You got it.